I was the political director of the Irish marriage equality referendum campaign, and we became the first country in the world to introduce marriage equality by a public vote. And then I went on to Australia, where I became the director of the Australian campaign. They faced a public vote and we passed that as well. Both were thumping majorities. The three animals of campaigning, as far as I'm concerned, are never eat a red herring, never run down a rabbit hole, and don't mud wrestle with a pig. One of the things we've seen a lot of in Ireland and Australia in the campaign was the no-side's job was not to persuade people to be against marriage, but to create confusion and try and pretend it was about something else. They knew the people in both countries were for marriage equality in principle, so rather than fight on that issue, they had to create as many distractions and as many doubts as possible. So we had a daily menu of, what about sex education in schools? What about children's school books? What about transgender bathrooms and gender-neutral bathrooms? What about adoption? What about surrogacy? And of course, none of these issues were connected to marriage, but our opponent's job was to try and get us to talk about them and lose our focus. I think the moments where campaigns lose is when they go off their own rails and they lose sight of what their real goal is. The third animal, is equally important. Never mud wrestle with a pig. Never forget, as a campaign, you're engaging with people who wish to be engaged with. You're trying to create space for them to become supporters. And as tempting as it might be to fight with the hardcore of the other side, they're not going to be persuaded, and all it's going to do is make your change proposal look scary. I think an awful lot of campaigns sometimes make the mistake of starting by saying your values are wrong and you have to change, when in fact for a lot of change that isn't required. For a lot of change it's just about taking the values that you already have and applying them to another group of people. There's nothing a national campaign can do that is more effective than when someone in the workplace or at the kitchen table stands up and says why this change matters to their lives. Because of course then the change becomes a who and not a what. And when marriage equality or LGBTI equality or gender equality stops being a what and starts being a Margaret or a Bob or a Joe, then people understand why it matters. I think the national campaigns have relevance for cultural change or any kind of change within business contexts as well, because marriage equality and LGBTI equality aren't about winning at one moment in time, they're about creating enduring change. Political campaigns come and go, the campaign for marriage will come and go. What matters is the rolling campaign that creates the change in the everyday lives for people. Change is not inevitable. In fact, there's probably nothing less inevitable than progress. When you win, you have to recommit yourself to betting it down, and then you've spent the rest of your life protecting it.